welcome Jeff, and welcome Big Mike. How are you guys doing this beautiful spring morning?
Yeah, thanks for having me. No, I'm super excited to be here, and yeah, I'm doing well.
Yeah, it's been another amazing morning here in Costa Rica, so can't complain. Need to get myself set up so I can show you what's going on over here.
Nice, nice. Yeah, Mike's in paradise in Costa Rica, and I'm in Canada, and Jeff is in the Maldives right now. So we are a triumvirate of global travelers, and we're spanning the globe to bring to you today a discussion about Axie Infinity, and probably also just kind of like a generic, where is the industry going? I think Jeff has probably been around earlier than we have, Jeff. Like, I think I jumped into the NFT market last year, early last year. Mike around probably even a bit earlier than that. But
I've been making NFTs for quite a while, like since Wax started, and they gave us the opportunity to. So it's been a little, like, couple years at least, but I haven't had a chance to really jump into the ETH community yet. So that's kind of my next foray, I think.
oh, good. Yeah, and we were just talking about breaking barriers down and also expanding our horizons when it comes to technology. I think it's at the end of the day, it's NFTs or NFTs, right? So, yeah, welcome guys, welcome Jeff.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Axie Infinity and what it is that you guys are doing there. So you have the opportunity to explain to not myself. I'm a little bit more familiar with the project, but Mike's a total noob. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's do Axie Infinity 101 for a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure. So Axie is a virtual world full of these really kind of fierce but cute fantasy pets. On the surface, it's about battling, collecting, even kind of building a city or a base on top of land. But I think what we're seeing, right? Similar to something like Pokemon or Tamagotchi, and maybe even Clash of Clans or Animal Crossing. But what we're seeing is that because we use blockchain to make the uh, in-game economy open and controlled by the players, it allows for these really interesting behaviors to emerge where the players really feel like they're in control of the ecosystem, that they're owners of the game. And so, the way that I think of Axie, it's not just one game, it's an entire universe of games built on top of this amazing art. But it's not just a game, it's more than a game. It's in some ways a nation or a civilization where people are making complex social structures, guilds, but these guilds, in some cases have guild banks that are made of real, comprised of real cryptocurrency. Sports with competitive play. And then, yeah, I think also just, a real economy with, full digitally native property rights. So
A
So yeah,
metaverse, essentially. So does Axie run strictly on Ethereum, or do you guys have second layer stuff too going on? Like, how does that work? Because I know
yeah, so
gas
right
fees
now
have
we're
been
Mhm. Yeah, so right
very
now we're in a
painful.
transitionary period where, so we, I guess just a little bit of background on myself and Axie. So I got interested in crypto basically through NFTs. I had like a very small amount of Ether, and then on December 4th, 2017, I learned about CryptoKitties and got just kind of fell down the rabbit hole and thought that NFT games would be the future and yeah, kind of met the early Axie team, and I started out as a community member, and things kind of really snowballed from there. So yeah, a lot of my early days it was very Ethereum focused, and I also got interested in DeFi, things like that. And then yeah, Axie was kind of Ethereum is our first home. I think of it as like the hyperbolic chamber. It's like conditions are rough. There's a lot of like force pushing down on you, in some ways constraining your growth, but also in some ways making you stronger and more resilient. So yeah, so right now we have kind of a hybrid system where Axies are still living on Ethereum, But we have land and land items that are on Ronin, which is an Ethereum sidechain that we've built ourselves, and we've customized it specifically for NFTs. And so yeah, and then the idea is to eventually migrate almost basically all activity onto Ronin, the sidechain. So that's slated for later this year. I think hopefully Q2.
And how do you do that with the original tokens? You guys have like an escrow contract where you move them over, or are you gonna like burn them and remint them on Ronin, or and then how do you view like original assets on ETH being transferred to different side chains in that manner where they're destroyed and then recreated?
Yeah, I think that's a good it's a good question. I think it's a tricky thing.
Mike
but
just goes straight. He cuts the bullshit and he just goes straight.
Yeah, for sure. I think NFTs, right, are about social consensus, right? So if the community is okay with the plan, then I think it works, right? And so the value in the NFTs is in the utility, and then the social kind of social leverage that exists within the community. So yeah, basically what we'll do is it's kind of like a hard fork where that basically the Axie tokens on Ethereum won't, like, OpenSea, the Axie marketplace won't be like displaying them anymore, right? And so it's like they're kind of being forked over to Ronin. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a really cool event, and people are super excited about it. So yeah, I think the consensus within the Axie community is that everyone is down for it, and I'm really excited about
How
it.
do you, so I love the idea. I love what you guys are doing. I actually own some land. I've been trying to get more, but the prices have been going up. But how do you measure that consensus? How do you get that consensus? Is there some sort of DAO, or is there some sort of voting, or how is that managed right now, or what are the future plans for that?
Yeah, so we do have a governance token called Axis, or AXS, and I think in the future we can definitely use it to for certain votes and for sentiment measurement. Right now, a lot of it is, I think, talking to the community leaders, and there are only around 30,000, right, like people who own Axies.
Only.
So I think it's kind of easy to measure the sentiment of the people that we know, who are, I think, like have a lot of social clout within the community as well. And then also the people, they're kind of in some ways, like delegates, right? There are people who kind of represent the Philippines, right, informally, but are kind of our eyes and ears down there. And so yeah, so I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think we believe in like progressive decentralization, where we do want a core team building Axie out, and building out the tools, and getting it to a place where eventually user generated content can kind of take over, right? So I think, like, eventually what we want is for Axie to be kind of this internet battle monster protocol that anyone can build on top of. But if we try and be that right now, it's not going to work, right? So that there has to be, I think, this kind of optimization between, having people kind of fully focused on driving that forward.
Yeah, there's a couple things there. First thing I want to ask is, like, so you mentioned 30,000 people. What are the demographics of that? Where are they based? The geography? What kind of people play Axie?
Yeah, so I think there are two main archetypes of users right now. One of them, which I think is very unique to Axie, are people who have never used blockchain before, that have found out about Axie because of the play to earn phenomenon, right? They hear from their friend that, hey, they're playing this game that kind of looks like Pokemon, and it's kind of also like similar to Hearthstone in some ways, but so it's fun, but also they're able to earn some money, right? Because we have different tokens that you can earn by playing the game. such as SLP, which is basically an in-game resource that's tokenized. The only way you can earn it is by playing the game, and the only way you can get it is if you don't want to play the game, or you don't have the time to farm so much of it, is by buying it on either Binance or Uniswap. And then we also have, of course, Axis governance token, which is given out as in more complex ways, but one of them is, for example, by being at the top of the leaderboard. So basically, this idea of play to earn has really struck a nerve, and I think it's gone viral in certain places, like the Philippines, Indonesia, Venezuela, where people who are able to earn $10 a day playing Axie, right? That's that's amazing supplementary income, and in some places, right, it's like something that you can live off of. So that's one archetype of user. And there are like amazing guilds that are cropping up, like Yield Guild, YGG. It's basically a metaverse guild with the goal of onboarding people from the developing world into play to earn blockchain games or play to earn NFT games. So that's one archetype. And then the other archetype are the collectors, right? There are more, but the collectors, and they may be, right, content creators, they might be developers. So oftentimes the collectors also have some kind of skill that they'll acquire some of the really rare Axies, like Mystic Axies, Origin Axies, or have a lot of land, and then they'll kind of work for the network by creating content, YouTube tutorials, streaming, building Axie fan sites, right? So we have things like Axie Zone, Axie World, which are fan sites that are pretty crucial to the network, where people are using them to figure out the battle meta or looking at data related to the blockchain activity. So yeah, I think those, that's kind of an overview. And there are people who kind of blend the archetypes, right? There are some people who are also super focused on just the PvP aspect of it and winning the rewards, winning tournaments. They also happen to oftentimes be like content creators or able to become content creators because people want to know what their secrets are.
Yeah, so on that sounds awesome. The reason why I updated my background image to a huge black hole, because there's all these black hole type games in the NFT space, and they're just these huge economies and huge communities that are just soaking up a lot of people's time and making it fun, really. Isn't that what it's about? Just making life fun, right?
Yep, for sure. How do you guys do you guys have a way to reward content creators, or do you have a plan for doing that going forward, perhaps?
Yeah, so we do have an ecosystem fund. It's worth about $70 million right now, and we haven't really started to deploy it. But yeah, it's something that we're actually kind of thinking about how to basically best use those funds, those tokens. It's all in Axis, denominated in Axis tokens. Right now, so far, it's like the main way that people do it is they kind of create their own incentivization, right? So they will acquire their own stake in Axie either by getting the governance token, buying it, and oftentimes, or collecting some of the super rare Axies. But I think, yeah, in order to get this to the next step, I think it's important to have some type of grant system, some sort of kind of systematic and also well formatted and well formulated way of getting attracting new builders to the ecosystem. Obviously, it is a optimization where, right, like the people doing things now, we can kind of see that, hey, these are visionaries. They're not mercenaries, right? They're not just doing it just for money. And also, I think it does make sense. Good things also happen when people can justify, for example, to their wives, and being able to spend more time as a content creator.
Or even just being able to continue the content creation that you've already done because of the love of it. But it's nice to actually have some incentivization, like you said. Like maybe my wife is not super happy that I spend.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way that I always say. I'm married now, so I always know about wives don't like it when you waste time. So that's kind of the way that I look at it is, okay, like we want to basically have the people who would be doing this out of out of joy and because they believe in the long-term vision. But we also want to allow them more flexibility and the ability to kind of justify spending more time without feeling like you know yeah.
And then a lot of them probably just reinvest that right back into the ecosystem anyway, right? So
Yeah,
I
Mike,
mean,
you're
I
all
think
about this. You're all about this kind of model. I think you're doing it for. You're part of a couple metaverses, right? How does this compare? You think now that you're learning about it?
it sounds very similar. I mean, all these things, and even even chains. It's like you just have to incentivize the people that are working on it, essentially. Like, so, yeah, it seems like that this is definitely a model, like a good model and a good way to go to kind of move
This is
things
also
forward.
why distribution is so important for crypto networks. So I think like so far, Axie has gotten by in terms of its community by having good distribution, right? Like I think we've had good Genesis events, right? Like where okay, like it also helps to be building throughout a bear market, right? It's like the people who have the majority of the assets, like they're not in it for a quick
Right.
flip, right?
That's a
They
good point.
believe so it's actually much harder to do these great distributions to missionaries during bull markets,
Mhm.
right? So it's always the best communities are formed when things are not so easy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
a
one of
that's
our
a super point.
superpowers.
Like I think that's coming to life right now. A lot of the mainstream folks are coming in and looking for possibly investment opportunities, but this is kind of like more than that. This is building out an infrastructure. It's building out a community, right?
Some of those mainstream people that are coming, about maybe 20% of them, or maybe a little bit less, they are missionaries too. They will, but they'll need to basically stick around for right. So it's like the ones that are coming in, and when things aren't just like mooning all the time, uh but the ones who kind of stick around, who are in it, at least a little bit, or at least kind of maybe 50% for the technology, those are the ones that I think will stick around. I mean, because also even within the Axie community, there are people who they're super OGs within the Axie community, but in early 2018 they were pretty new to crypto, but they were good cultural fits, I think, for the community, for the movement, for the ethos. So even though they were really early in 2018, they stuck it out through the bear market, and then now all of a sudden they're an NFT OG, like, and everyone's like, oh, like, yeah, I wish you're so lucky, right? That these people weren't lucky. Like they went through a
No, they
lot of
were
hard times.
persistent. They were, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I found too, is that bear markets just shake the tree, right? And the lower end projects that aren't doing anything or aren't actually incentivizing their users to use a product or to support them, just fade
It's
away,
about
right?
belief too,
So,
right, Mike? Like you got to believe in what you're doing and what you're spending your time on, and
yep,
believe in the
100%.
technology. You're in it for the technology. I know everyone makes fun of that, but I think there's a little bit more to be said for the people who stick through a bear market. Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit, Jeff, about Sky Mavis. They're the developers of the game, and some of the partnerships that you guys have secured and are working with these partners on, and what you guys are working on.
Yeah. So basically, Sky Mavis are, among other things, the core developers of Axie Infinity. We also are building different tools to make it easy to build and distribute blockchain games. One of them is Ronin. One of them is something called Ronin, Mavis Hub, which is basically kind of like a Steam, right, or an Epic Game Store for blockchain games. And so that's Sky Mavis. And yeah, we're headquartered in Vietnam. We have around 30, pushing 30 people on the team right now. Yeah, I think we see ourselves as hopefully in the future one of many teams that will be working with the Axie IP, and we also are excited to start onboarding traditional game developers, like maybe indie or even AAA. We know that blockchain gaming makes sense, that NFTs make sense. We've gone through the process. We've been using them for 3 years to bootstrap a community and kind of build this amazing thing. So we've gone through the process, and we feel like we have so much to share, and we also have the tools that are the tools necessary for other game developers to go through the process. So I think a lot of indie game developers who they might be unsure of how to actually bootstrap a community and incentivize a community of kind of fanatic users to try out and test their games, and then also just I think larger game studios that are looking for new monetization paths, also ways to turn their users into super fans, right? I think all game studios have that desire to turn their players into something more. So I think that
how does a indie game studio or an established game studio build on top of Axie? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think there are two tracks that game developers will go through in the future. One of them is, okay, they might have really established IP, a community already, so that in that case, they might be, good for using Ronin, good for using our marketplace, and we can, or maybe even instating a governance token, right? It's like one of the things is that we're the first game really to kind of have this governance token that will allow the community to actually own the game. I think that's going to be a super important trend in the future as well. So I think that's one track, right? It's like not really using Axie, but using Ronin, using our tools. But then there's another track where you might be a really great game developer, but you don't necessarily have a team. You don't have great IP or art, right? In that case, you could use we help them basically use the Axie art, use the Axie IP. We'll have a SDK for them, which is basically just what we're using internally, but it'll be kind of made open source for developing stuff on top of Axie. So I think those are two really exciting tracks.
The second track, is that kind of like, so there's Battle Arena, but they would probably develop out, I don't know, something else.
So right now there's Battle Arena. We're building Land, right? Land is kind of similar more to like Rise of Kingdoms, but we also want Land is also kind of is interesting in that, okay, there will be games built on top of Land that use the Land, like something like Rise of Kingdoms, like basically an MMO RTS. We also want Land to be a meta layer, right? That's more open, where people can just go and explore and then discover other experiences. So I think these other developers, they might build kind of mini games that are accessible through Land, or they might build their own applications as well. I think it's it can be super flexible.
Do landowners like get a cut or something, or is it just that they own that NFT and then that's kind of in perpetuity?
Yeah, so landowners have access to a couple of things, right? There's the ability to build stuff and potentially advertise things on their land. And there's also we have a budget of access, which is basically reserved. It's called the play to earn allocation, which is basically reserved for distribution through the game. So one of the ways that we'll distribute that is through the land game, right? So the resource nodes, for example, they're not just creating in-game normal resources. Some of them will be basically ERC20 tokens in the access token. So I think basically there's entertainment value, right? Like kind of a social meeting place, but also like economic value in the form of future resource / token flows.
Cool. So essentially you mine Axie by having land.
Yeah. So basically you have the ability to, right? And then I think there will be massive landowners who, they might not necessarily be able to use all their land. So then we'll basically have social features where, you can delegate your land to a guild member, something like that, something of that principle.
Some kind of like land DeFi leasing function or something.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So,
or maybe third party could do that somewhere along the line.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, I think it's important. I just see it as a social feature. where you basically let someone kind of be the commander of your land, and then they're entitled to a certain proportion of the resources, for example, that they generate while using that land. And that might be like, okay, you're the general and they're kind of a lieutenant or whatever, right? And we're basically getting into a very feudal, militaristic society over the fight, constant battle for resources. But then I think all systems like that eventually end up in hegemony, right? With one kind of military power gaining control over everyone, right? So basically, then we need to make it so that there are, I think, like world events where chimera or monsters come in and like fuck everyone up, and everyone has to basically
awesome.
team up together, right? Or and then that certain guilds might suffer more in terms of like their relative strength, and then that kind of
Well, I
opens up.
mean, disasters do
yeah.
happen, right? Natural disasters and all sorts of cool fun
Yeah,
stuff
exactly,
like that.
right? So
Yeah.
you need to have natural disasters, basically world catastrophes to shake up the hegemony, the inevitable
I
path towards hegemony.
I think it's so funny how we're building out level layer 2 for Ethereum and gas, and a lot of uh, blockchain infrastructure is building out level 2 to enable more transactions. And here we are building out level 2 layer for the world and metaverse, where we don't want to participate in real life stuff, but we create these digital worlds, and that we can kind of replicate layer 2 on now. So it's kind of a interesting parallel thing that's going on here.
It's a Ready Player One universe, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I think there are a lot of influences from RPO and in Axie. I think it's definitely something that we find interesting, right? And I think it's very innovative, right? So I mean, the idea of being able to earn the game or win the game, that principle is kind of also at the heart of our governance token, right? Where okay, you're on this quest, you can earn really part of the game, but it's not winner takes all. They're sharded. The game is sharded and then distributed, kind of based on these set allocations, and that kind of allow for good distribution based on time and effort and skill.
What do you see as like the vision for the metaverse? Because there are a lot of worlds being created. How are these going to, and obviously I don't expect there to be one path, but like how do these mesh? How do these interact together, and do they even do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one characteristic will be a shared currency, because currency underpins society, currency underpins community, shared items, right? So it's like, I mean, that's still kind of a meme dream of NFTs, but I think like we'll see, okay, if you have this NFT, right, that could give you exclusive access, right, a kind of a passport to certain things. It might be a crafting ingredient that's universally recognized. It's and I think NFTs are also a form of social capital. So social capital should always be portable among universes, because capital is inherently fluid. So that's kind of the way that I see it. So I think, yeah, there will be many different kind of virtual worlds, but there will be cross pollinations that make sense at the economic level, at the ownership level. So yeah, this is the way that I'm looking at it. There are also, right, there are some people who think that kind of VR, right, or like kind of like a physical, I don't know, this persistent world that you're kind of viewing from a first person perspective is important. I'm not sure if that's necessarily so important. I think things rarely pan out as we predict them to, right? Like right now, like we see, okay, like Discord is like the social layer kind of, right? It's like we all hang out in Discord and talk to each other and socialize and become friends. And then yeah, in terms of the entertainment layer, right? I mean, in Axie, right, a lot of it is like, very basic for now, but battling each other and continuing those relationships and rivalries that are formed in Discord as well. And then yeah, I think hanging out, like having meetups, right? Like Crypto Voxels has really awesome meetups, which is starting to give us some kind of glimpse of that social space as well. Kind of combining with the world, right? So I guess the social space moving out of solely Discord and Twitter basically into also these applications. So yeah, I think
Yeah, I've seen people hang out in crypto voxel parcels just to have shared kind of space while they do a Twitch or they do a stream, and it's kind of weird how we socially interact these days. But again, also very natural and just using all the tools that we have to, you know, get over this point in time where it's really difficult on everyone not being able to see each other physically. But even just people across worlds, the fact that me and you can talk and Mike and we're all over the world, but we could also share a same spot on the metaverse as well too. I think it's really interesting as well.
I think like I see that as becoming eventually like that. I mean, I know that the VR aspect isn't necessarily as important maybe as like it needs to be here right now, but like I see that eventually that developing most likely, and also like I don't know where you see NFTs like in 10 years, but I really see them kind of being fluid among different chains and like tradable across many platforms, as well as maybe like games like expanding to different platforms to serve different users and stuff on those platforms, right?
I mean, I think the nation state is another way to look at kind of chains, right? It's like, so, if you're if you're an American and you go to Korea, right, and then you bring your items with you, then you bring your currency, or you bring gold, or you bring your ether with you, right? Then there is going to be someone in that accepts that because it benefits them to accept to accept any form of value or recognize that form of value. That's also how I see the interop of NFTs being. It's like it's beneficial for people to accept and recognize all forms of value within their projects or in products. So yeah, I think yeah, there was an interesting moment where, so we had the land demo for Axie Land in December, and I was talking to one of our players, RC Tech. I mean, it's a guy that I've known for 2 years. He's a really great competitive Axie player, and yeah, I was like asking him about the demo, what he thought, and he's like, "Yeah, look, it's fun, man. Like, let's do something together. Like, I'm gonna come to your plot, and then I'm gonna show you my best farming spot." And I was like, "Okay, like whatever." It's like, and then I feel like, right, like you feel like you're talking, you're kind of present with someone, at least when you're having like a very fast back and forth Discord conversation. But then when I saw his Axie, right, his signature Axie that's actually his Discord avatar, kind of pull up and arrive at my plot, like something weird, there was some kind of different type of feeling. And then we was like, okay, let's go. And then we just started walking alongside each other, and then there was definitely a more of a it was just Axies, and it felt different. So
Almost
I think
more of like a physical presence, right?
there's something important about having your avatar and someone else's avatar in close proximity inside some type of virtual open world, if that makes sense. So
I think
I'm
it
still
just gives you
exploring.
like a point of reference. Like it just like literally just like we're both here together, and
Yeah.
so that's our starting point, you know?
I experienced the same thing. I was working with somebody on one of my parcels on crypto voxels, and he's there building, and I was talking to him on Discord, but then in the world itself, I go towards his character and I face him and I start typing, and it's like we're having oh, you should move this over here, move that over there. It's really interesting how we interact these days.
Yeah, it's definitely really awesome. Yeah, I've also had that experience in crypto voxels with like Brickhawk. Like he's like, yeah, I'm gonna show you my plot. I'm gonna show you all the Axie stuff that's been built in here. And so yeah, it's super awesome.
On that note, well, we'll definitely, whenever Mike and I have a, NFT hype meetup in crypto voxels, we can invite and you guys and uh, extend the invite out to the Axie community. I think it's about time we start kind of bridging the worlds here and just kind of building out this kind of interesting new world. And it's a world too where you can also hang like digital art and just participate in economies that are just a little bit more advanced and recognize everyone's social capital and social consensus in different forms, right? As long as they're all interchangeable. Not everyone's going to like wizards, not everyone's going to like Axies, not everyone's going to like VR, but at least options are there for people to choose, right? One of those is like alien worlds too, Mike. Like not everyone gets the card-based games and the mining stuff. It's not about one sort of universe winning. It's just about, I guess, giving everyone the option to choose the IP that they most fit with, and right.
And the thing I think is like this market now is just so small compared to where it could be in the future that like all these IPs could end up working because there's just so many people that want to get involved, right? Like I think right now we're kind of fighting each other for each other's breakfast, but I think in the future that's really going to change, especially once we just get more adoption.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. So what's next for Axie? What's coming up on the scene? Is there anything that you'd able to let us know, leak to us, or whatever? We'd be happy to discuss that and just tell us what's exciting coming up for Axie.
Yeah. So we're working on a couple of different things right now. We have an upgraded, revamped battle system coming out, and later this year, hopefully, I would say, yeah, within the next 6 months. Ubisoft said that it was a massive, like 10x improvement over the current experience. So we're super excited about that. We think it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna basically introduce like talents, right? Like upgrades, right?
Well,
Right now,
hang
a lot
on a
of
sec. We
progression.
don't know anything about Ubisoft. What's their involvement?
Yeah, so basically Ubisoft, we went through an accelerator program or an entrepreneur. It's called the Entrepreneurship Lab with them, and they gave us a lot of awesome advice, and they were there as mainly as an advisor, sounding board, to kind of check out our product and also like what we're building and suggest improvements and let us know whether they think what we're doing is good from a kind of traditional gaming standpoint. So that's really important. Yeah, they're also, they're a validator on Ronin, right? So it's like, Ronin right now is kind of backed by social capital, in a way, right? Where we don't have a Ronin token to validate the network. So it's not necessarily proof of stake right now. So it's like, yeah, people like Ubisoft, they kind of back the network with their reputations. Like, why if Ubisoft did something for this very small games chain, like why would they do that? Like, that makes sense. So yeah, so basically, yeah, so Ubisoft and we are very excited about Battles V2. That's in the product pipeline. I think in terms of I think in terms of pipeline rather than giving like explicit dates, because we're dealing with things that have never been done before. So yeah, Battles V2, also Project K, which is basically our land-based system. The first basically experience on top of it, you can think of it as a MMO RPG where you can build up a city, build up a town, train soldiers, attack resource nodes, attack other bases, team up for PvP battles, but also team up to fight against monsters called Chimera. So that's also in the pipeline. Yeah, also in terms of our governance token, we're going to open up the community treasury, or as I like to call it, the infinity pool. Basically, all the fees, right? Like 4.25% of all marketplace volume, breeding fees, all future land sales, all of that will be going into the treasury, and then spit back out to access holders. They
They have to
don't
stake it.
Yeah, basically they need to stake it, but they also need to perform some kind of work. So that might be filling out a survey, that might be playing the game. There'll be different options. So it's not just like, okay, you stake and you get your rewards week after week. You need to do something that improves the network, and you have to work for that reward. It's going to be a fun kind of gamified staking mechanism.
That's cool. Hey, all right. That all sounds amazing. Just before you go there, Jeff, there's also bragging rights in these NFT worlds. What is kind of like one of your favorite NFTs that you'd say you'd be proud of to say, hey, I own that? Is it a Mystic Axie? Is it a Beeple? What is that? I saw you on Twitter just this morning talking about an ape. I don't know what that's about. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I love my Mystic Axies. I think those are really dear to me. I've given them as wedding presents to people. It's now like an $18,000 wedding present. So they were like $200 back then. But now, yeah, it's quite a. I used to do giveaways.
Hopefully they kept it.
I used to do giveaways, and the giveaway winners always sold them for way too cheap before they blew up. Because you don't necessarily value something that you got for free as much as you should.
No, people don't.
But yeah, so yeah, my Mystic Axies, I think those are really near and dear to my heart. Yeah, I own B20, so I guess I technically am a Beeple owner. Yeah, the ape that I was so the apes and CryptoPunks are I think selling for hundreds and now probably worth thousands of ETH, because I think that they're worth more than the aliens. Alien just sold right for a lot. So
8 million.
In 2019, I used to kind of go into the CryptoPunk Discord once in a while and say, hey, like I'm looking for an ape. I'm looking for an ape. No one ever hit me up. So it was a huge missed opportunity, but can't complain.
Yeah, it's a crazy world we're living in. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's just been kind of like a really mind-opening and also wall breaking down sort of conversation. And it was kind of like it was a real pleasure to have you on and learn about the Axie universe. Let's do it again one day. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. And yeah, I think we hit on some pretty awesome stuff today. And yeah, it was nice to meet you, Big Mike, as well.
Yeah, it's great talking to you, Jeff, for sure. So thank you for coming on board.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll see you guys in Discord then.
Yeah. Peace out. Nice talking to you.